Hi and welcome to 3ds Max Quick Tips. Now this is how to set up your 3ds Max user interface like a pro. So when you've opened 3ds Max for the first time, you'll see something very similar to this. What you want to do is create a project folder, and that's where your work is going to be saved for each of your projects. To do that, you can go to File, Set Project Folder. Now this is in 3ds Max 2018. You go to a location on your computer, you can create a new folder. Let's call this Project 001, hit OK, and inside that folder we'll see a list of other folders, and that's where 3ds Max automatically will go when it's saving your files. So it will save your files into scenes, it will save your backups into Autoback, imports into those relevant folders. Alright. So let's close that out. We're going to have a look at the backups in a second. First of all, we're going to customize our units. So we'll go to Customize Units Setup. And what you want to do is, if you're in the US, you want to use your feet and inches. If you're anywhere else in the world, you'll more than likely be using metric. So we generally use millimeters for interior design, centimeters for games, and meters for architecture. I'm going to set mine to millimeters, and I'm going to set my system unit scale to millimeters to match. Hit OK and hit OK. Now we're going to have a look at our preferences. So up to Customize, Preferences. Under the General, we want to enable Auto Window Crossing. That helps us to select objects by clicking and dragging. We want to go to Files, and we want to make sure that Compress on Save is ticked. That's really an important one because that can be the difference between a file which is 30 megs and 3 megs, and that will save a lot of room on your hard drive. Make sure you've got that ticked. And under Auto Backup, make sure that's enabled. Now by default, the backup interval is generally around 5 minutes. I set mine to 20. It's a good idea to make that 20 minutes or 30 minutes depending on how comfortable you are with the amount of time you've got to redo if something goes wrong, and it very often does. Alright, so 20 minutes for my save. I'm going to hit OK. For my viewports here, I've got top, front, left and perspective viewport. That's the layout I prefer to have. In the perspective one, what I'll do is click on the word perspective and go down to show safe frames, and what that does is it represents the rendering area. So whatever you see in this frame is exactly what you'll get in your render. So that's well worth having. When you set this to a camera, then you'll have your safe frame all ready to go. Now up in the top bar we have snaps. So that's represented by the 2, the 2.5 and the 3. I'm going to right click on that, and by default we've got grid points, and I'm going to select vertex because that's what I want to snap with. Under options, I'm going to untick display rubber band and tick enable axis constraints, and that allows us to move things easily in X, Y and Z coordinates. Alright, next up we're going to do something which is going to save us a little bit of time. If I wanted to create a box, for example, I'd have to go over to the menu, click on box and create a box in the scene. There is a shortcut for that we can do if we go into Customize User Interface. If we go to quads, these are the pop-ups you see when you right click in any viewport. I'm going to select the bottom left one here. I'm going to go down to menus and select create, and now there's lots of create, but I'm going to select the top one which just says create on its own. I'm going to click and drag that to the top of the menu, and I'm going to put in a separator. If I open up that create, you can see there are other options inside here. We've got standard primitives, compounds, all those sort of things. Now what I'd like to do is generally delete the ones that we don't need. So for example, AEC is normally in there, so I like to just delete that one. We've got helpers and systems, which I generally like to keep. You have particles and NURBs and things like that, which you can also get rid of. Okay, and then what you'd like to do is hit save. It will give you a default name. Just hit save, hit yes, and that will save the user interface, so next time you open up Max it will be the same setup. So I'm just going to right click to show you what that did. So instead of going over here to select box, I can right click here and go create box, and that will save you microseconds, but those microseconds stack up throughout the day and it will save you a lot of time, and before you know it you'll be using it all the time. So that's a good one to do. If you're looking for a little bit of more space on your screen, it's a good idea to turn off the animation bar. If you're not doing any animation at all, you can right click on the bar and untick time slider. That gives you a little bit more room, so that's great if you've got a laptop. And that's it. Those are my top tips for getting started with 3ds. Thanks for watching. If you have any other tips, let me know. Put a comment underneath, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.